Hi, this is Dan Sussman, and in this presentation we're going to begin looking at paragraphs. At this stage of your education, I'm going to assume you know what sentences are, how they function, and how they're constructed. Well, a sentence standing on its own is just fine, but it probably doesn't tell you very much. You want to put sentences together into groups to express more meaning, to talk about things in more detail. And that's where paragraphs come in. A paragraph is a collection of related sentences, all of which deal with all of which deal with a single topic. So let's take a look at that. First, there are four features of a paragraph, and we're going to look at those in a little bit of detail. First, a paragraph has a topic sentence that states the main idea. It sets the tone for the entire paragraph, and it tells the reader, this is what I want to say. This is what I want you to come away with in this group of sentences. And all of the sentences in a paragraph tie back to that one topic. So a paragraph is not just a random set of sentences. They are all united around a single idea. Next, the first line of a paragraph is indented. That's more of a mechanical thing than anything, and we'll discuss that. And the last sentence of a paragraph, also known as the concluding sentence, brings the paragraph to some kind of logical conclusion. I like to say it sort of wraps things up and puts a bow on them. So let's go into these areas in a little bit of detail. First, the topic sentence serves as the foundation for the entire paragraph. It takes the reader by the hand and tells them what you want to say. Everything else in that paragraph must in some way relate to that topic sentence. If you have things there that don't relate to that topic sentence or don't relate strongly enough to the topic sentence, they probably shouldn't be there, because you want your paragraph to have meaning, not just be a random set of sentences. And finally, the topic sentence can be in the beginning, middle, or end of a paragraph. Most of the time, for our purposes, it will be at the beginning. That's not always true. But for illustration purposes, we're going to say that at the moment. And as you get farther along and more experienced in writing, you're going to see how the topic sentence sometimes occurs elsewhere in the paragraph. So here's a paragraph that I wrote recently. It says this: the most beautiful sunset I ever saw occurred after a spectacular dust storm last summer. In the middle of a July afternoon, sudden winds created a blanket of dust that rolled over the entire valley of the sun. While the winds died down, within an hour the air was filled with dirt and sand. All of those particles filtered the light, however, and when the sun began setting over the western mountains, the dust acted as a prism, and the sky glowed in gorgeous hues of pink, purple, and orange. Soon the sun dropped below the peaks, night settled across Phoenix, and the burst of color became just a memory. Still, it was a moving moment I never will forget, and it reminded me that even in the wake of nature's fury, exceptional beauty can occur. Okay, that's a descriptive paragraph. I'm describing what a scene looked like. And here is my topic sentence. The most beautiful sunset I ever saw occurred after a spectacular dust storm last summer. If you look throughout this paragraph, every sentence in one way or the other ties back to that idea. That gives my paragraph what's called unity. All of the sentences in a paragraph should address a single topic. Look at the ideas in the topic sentence. These are the controlling ideas. And again, ask yourself whether all sentences in the paragraph relate to those ideas. If not, you probably ought to look at editing that paragraph and taking out the ones that don't belong. Here's an example. My most memorable trip abroad occurred last year when I visited Amsterdam. I caught the plane to Europe right after I finished my final exam. It was a difficult exam, but I had studied hard, so I was sure I did well. My friends and I had gone to a party a week earlier, but left early so we could prepare for the exam. Now let's break this paragraph down a little bit and see what's working. There is your topic sentence. My most memorable trip abroad occurred last year when I visited Amsterdam. The controlling idea there is that I went on a trip to Amsterdam and it left a great impression on me. That creates the expectation that everything else in that paragraph is going to address that subject. But look what I've got here. I talk about the fact that I caught the plane to Europe right after I finished my final exam. Okay. But in the end of the paragraph, I've taken the focus off of the trip and put it on the final exam. It was a difficult exam, but I had studied hard. If we're talking about a trip to Amsterdam, suddenly getting into the details of how I felt about my final exam doesn't really fit. That information is unrelated. So it probably doesn't belong in the paragraph, and it's something that you probably, or the writer probably, needs to rework. Indentation. Now you may have noticed that in the last paragraph, I started the paragraph right at the left margin. In fact, in paragraphs that we write, particularly as beginning writers, the first line of a paragraph is indented. That means it moves in several spaces from the left margin. So you start the first sentence 5 or 6 spaces, or perhaps 1 tab stop, to the right of the margin. This is a way of signaling to the reader, that you are going to be talking about a new topic. There is a new thought beginning, and experienced readers should pick up on that right away. Finally, the last sentence of the paragraph, or of course the concluding sentence, means the same thing, should bring the paragraph to some kind of logical conclusion. It usually states the main point again in some other words, summarizes the main idea, or also in some kinds of paragraphs it can also offer a suggestion, opinion, or prediction. And again, as you become a more experienced writer, you're going to see this whole concept handled in a variety of ways. But for beginning writers, think in terms of a concluding sentence. So if we look back at the piece I wrote earlier, the paragraph I wrote earlier about the most beautiful sunset I ever saw, if you look down at the end of the paragraph, the last sentence, still, it was a moving moment I never will forget it, and it reminded me that even in the wake of nature's fury, exceptional beauty can occur. It reaches some kind of conclusion. It sort of brings the whole thing around back to the beginning and tells the reader what the meaning is. The conclusion closes the paragraph by restating the topic, not in the same words, and perhaps adding to it and setting the stage for moving on to the next thought. So, to summarize, a paragraph is a group of sentences about a single topic. The 4 features of a paragraph are a topic sentence that states the main idea, all of the sentences being about a single topic, indenting the first line of a paragraph, and a concluding sentence that brings the paragraph to a natural and logical close.